I think I see now how it happened. Last evening at dinner, when Miss McGlynn saw Blanche give Kendall Nesbitt her key, she was furious. She dropped a steak knife into her purse.
Big deal. I took a whole place in.
Not now!
I just wanted to let you know about my study group.
Oh, don't be a fuddy-duddy. I'll be your study buddy.
I'm about to embark on one of the great challenges of my scientific career.
This work right here is going to change history.
I think this is going to be our greatest mission.
I don't have time to study. I'll never get into Stanford.
I got big plans for you tonight. I got maps, I got charts. I'm going to see you through this because my credibility is on the line.
It's at this point that you'll want to start taking notes.
Welcome to the Sitcom Study, the podcast where we contemplate the TV shows we grew up with and search for the truth and wisdom within the tropes and cliches. And Amy, what are we talking about today?
Well, Watson, I have solved the murder.
Indeed, you have. Murder most foul. We're talking about specifically murder, mystery, weekends, games, stuff like
parties, that. Exactly. It's a murder mystery, but it's all fake. Don't worry. No one's really dying, or are they?
Yes. So this is one that I've been longing to talk about. I wouldn't call this a sitcom trope. I'd say this is a thing that a handful of sitcoms have done.
Yeah, a lot of them.
And it's a thing that happens in real life.
Murder and murder games.
Yes. So, yes, we're not going to have any real murders, spoiler alert, in any of these shows, but we're going to have various degrees of thinking that a murder happened and thinking it was fake, but then it was
misdirection.
Real. Have you ever gone to a murder mystery weekend, played a murder mystery game, any one of these sort of make-believe type things?
Yes, a friend of mine gave a murder mystery party for like her birthday or for fun. I don't remember why. I think it was her 40th birthday though. And we all got dressed up. It was done in like the 1930s kind of era. So we all had on, old-timey dresses and wigs, and I sang because my character was the songbird nightclub singer. So I sang, and it was really fun. And I got murdered, and it was.
So you were the victim.
I was one of the victims.
Oh,
it was
dear.
one of those parties where, like, throughout the evening, people kept getting murdered.
And was there any, like, outside professional orchestration, or this was just something that something that somebody bought and set up among your friends?
Yeah, it wasn't like a game the way they have, like, the games now.
Like the one in the office.
Right, where you get the cards and it's a little bit more. We have one upstairs, too.
It's a packaged thing.
Exactly. It wasn't like that. It was set up for a party that's going to take place over multiple hours. So, like, it was one of those ones that you probably could hire a professional company to do it, but, like, you could also just buy it, download everything off the internet, order the pack that goes with it, and make your friends be the people.
Right, because you're talking about a 40th birthday, so this happened relatively recently. My experience with this was back when we were in high school, and my friend Liz tried to do one of these things. She got one of these games. This was late 90s, so before internet as we know it. Invited us all over. This is very much like the murder mystery game we're going to talk about from The Office, a thing that came in a little box, little kits and things that you passed out, and everyone had to be a different character. And
we all got emailed our dossier of like who we were and everything like a month ahead of time.
So we
could buy costumes and everything.
We didn't have costumes aside from probably whatever this thing supplied, little, crappy little props.
Like they did on the one in The Office.
But we could not handle it. Like, we just didn't have the maturity to see it through. And, it was ages ago, so I don't remember that many of the details. What I remember most, what almost everyone remembers most, I think, is that I was supposed to be French in it. My character had to be the French guy.
Please give us your French accent, Jay.
So my French accent ended up being the Yogi Bear accent. I ended up going like, it wasn't me. you guys say that I'm the killer, but I didn't even have the weapon. And so,
I'm surprised. I thought you were going to say it was like you just kept going like, ha ha ha, le poisson, like the guy from The Little Mermaid, like the chef.
Yeah. And so everyone got a kick out of my French accent sounding more like they kept going like, oh, hey, boo-boo, where's the picnic basket? And so that was really the only detail that I could remember, and the fact that the whole thing kind of devolved after like 20 minutes and we weren't taking it seriously. So I texted my friend Liz and said, do you remember any details about the murder mystery game we tried to play besides my French accent? We're recording a podcast about those kind of games. And she said, it was racist. Gisette was Anita Green Card. So they comment in the Office about how a lot in that one, Dwight says a lot of the evidence was based on puns. Right. Also, the names of the characters are based on puns and kind of offensive ones. But so that we did the same kind of thing where everyone got a character and a little persona and a goofy name. And and so, like I said, I don't really remember any of it besides like we weren't really able to take it seriously. But I will say I loved these episodes. This Saved by the Bell episode was a huge favorite of mine.
Growing up, same. Yes, I loved this episode. I was always excited when it came on. It was because it was different. It was something, outside of the school.
Yes, and also the movies, I would argue, and the sort of pop culture that it's referencing was also things that I really like, specifically Clue and Murder by Death, right? Mm-hmm. Those are both movies from the 80s. Murder by Death is from like 1980, I think. It's Neil Simon screenplay, and it's very, very good, except unfortunately there are certain culturally dicey things that don't hold up so well. But both of those are about people being invited to this weekend at a spooky manor where there's going to be a murder.
Yep.
And especially in Murder by Death, you have the thing of like, it's like this multi-day trip. So in addition to the murder mystery stuff, you also just have this fun element of like all the different little couples and groups going off to their separate rooms. And it's like this fun field trip that I remember just from a vicarious point of view, thinking like, oh, this would be so fun to be like Zack and his friends going to this mansion for the weekend, or to be like these characters in Murder by Death invited to this place. And, you stay there for like 2 or 3 days and try to figure out this thing.
What's happening.
Yeah, right? It was just, I just really bought into it. That
name is really dumb.
What?
Murder by Death.
Well, yeah, but it's a spoof. It's a parody, to be fair. And that has the element that the Jeffersons episode we're going to talk about has, where all of the invitees are famous mystery authors and or they're fictional characters. Okay. And so it's like that thing. I think the Jefferson thing was kind of specifically referencing it of like, we are going to sort of prove ourselves the ultimate mystery by befuddling these master detectives or master mystery writers. But okay, let's get into it. What did we watch?
We watched The Jeffersons, season 9, episodes 8 and 9, Death Smiles on a Dry Cleaner, parts 1 and 2. Golden Girls, season 7, episode 2, The Case of the Libertine Belle. Saved by the Bell, season 3, or season 4? Is that where it actually showed up?
Yeah, it actually, when we ended up finding it on Amazon, it was completely different. So I would say just look for the murder episode.
Yeah.
The organization's all over the place.
It was called Mystery Weekend. And then The Office, season 6, episode 10, Murder.
Yeah, now let's get this subtrope out of the way so we can track it. A recurring theme is going to be, if you want to be a good detective, spot a man wearing woman's clothing, right?
Or a mustache, right? Like anybody who has a mustache is fake.
Yeah, all right. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. The Jeffersons, we've talked about it a bunch of times now. We love it. We love George and his antics and their relationship.
Yeah, but we are like way latter days.
This is season 9.
Yeah.
So
it had lost some of its shine. It definitely was just like we've talked before about this show kind of constantly being a series of setups so that Wheezy or the maid whose name Florence can zing George.
Or vice versa.
Exactly. Or he can zing them. And then in this instance, you had all of these people, all of these mystery authors that George is a fan of who were guests on this murder mystery cruise as well. They are just zinging him the whole time. And so it was a lot. It felt like a play, but not in a good way. It was a lot of standing around talking and making bad jokes at George's expense.
Yeah.
And there wasn't as much action, and definitely not enough action for a two-parter.
It is a little curious for this to be a two-parter. We're going to have, a pretty big cast, among all these lineups. Lots of fun little guest stars.
Yeah, because you got a lot of cameos. Like Edie McClure is in this Jeffersons episode. She
also the professor from Gilligan's Island is in it.
Yep.
So, it's not like Meryl Streep stopped by. We're not talking about like these huge A-list celebrities. They're fun, sitcom, familiar
Exactly.
faces.
To have the professor from Gilligan's Island pop up on your TV set years later, he's gray, he's still tan, but he's gray.
But now he's not all like nerdy and sophisticated. He's kind of a rough and tumble, like Private Dick guy or whoever he's
he's a mystery writer. All the guests on the cruise. So the setup for the shows, for this set of shows, these episodes, is that it's George's birthday and Louise gets him this cruise as a birthday present.
Yes, it's the maiden voyage of this whole new mystery cruise.
There you go. And they only had special VIP invited guests for this maiden voyage. You had to be a mystery writer, like an author. And so Louise lies and says that George is, so that way she can get him on this. And they're the only ones that show up with +1. And in that fact, they show up with +2. Everybody else comes solo.
Yeah.
And George brings his wife and his maid.
That's true. He also brings his deer stalker hat. He's got a whole little like Sherlock Holmes getup. And because the two people he brings are very equivalent to his deer stalker hat. Everybody else though is just by themselves, no +1s. Yeah, no, I didn't consider that. I honestly think it is just like there's only so many people that they can fit on this TV set at once.
Oh, I'm sure. And there's only so much money they have, right? But I just thought it was really funny because when they show us, it's stock footage of some like cruise ship, going down the river or something. But when they have that image, it is this very large ship. You can see like 45 staterooms. You can see 45 staterooms just on one side of the boat. And so you're like, oh, there's only 4 people on this boat? Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't think about that they don't have +1s, but it is, I just thought about how flimsy this whole charade is, that like they make up a funny name of what George's mystery novel is.
No. He makes up 4 different funny names. Every single mystery writer, they have this whole, basically the first episode is him finding out he's going to go on this cruise and then going to get on the cruise and standing on the gangway for 2 full scenes while every one of these mystery writers gets an entrance, right? And so every mystery writer gets an entrance and he recognizes all of them from their pictures on their book jackets because he's a big fan. And so he is, every time he introduces himself to an author, he's like, I'm, what's his name? George Jefferson. I'm George Jefferson, author of Blood on the something. I'm George Jefferson, author of whatever. And each of the names is funny and he gets a laugh and it does have a good little bit to it. I wish I would have written down the names. now.
But he alienates himself to each one of them. Like every exchange ends with them going like, "You're a nincompoop, sir."
Yes, and walking away.
But
you're a nitwit, you're a twit, you're I don't remember the other ones, a worm.
So we meet our cast of characters. We have a ship captain, notably, and we have a steward, right? This younger guy.
Yeah.
And then we have the mystery writers themselves. There's a little like Miss Marble type lady played by Edie McClure, who we know from the Valerie's Family and all kinds of other things.
So many things.
I
was pleasantly
secretary from Ferris Bueller,
exactly.
etc.
Yes.
We've got the professor, like we mentioned, from Gilligan's Island. He plays this sort of like gruff, almost like a Sam Spade.
He's like
type
a Hemingway.
maybe.
Yeah. Like, I've seen the world. I write mysteries.
Right. And then we've got this sort of classy guy. Got this like Billy D. Williams kind of vibe about him. And he immediately takes a liking to Florence and vice versa. And so
And then you've got the like British guy he's got the mustache.
Yes, right. He's just like a hoity-toity guy.
Yep.
And then we've got the Duchess.
Or whatever, the Countess or something.
She's the Duchess.
Is that what it is? And they are saying they're so lucky because she never leaves her castle in Germany. She's like, shut away. She's a shut-in basically in her castle in Germany. But they were able to convince her to come out for this one cruise.
Yeah, and look, we live in times now where I don't want to throw shade at anyone's physique not matching their gender or anything like that. Shaquille O'Neal could pull off looking like a woman better than this guy. Like, it's just, you have like the greatest minds in the like mystery literary world, and it's just one of these things, like I said, in more than one of these shows, you just have to buy into.
She looks like Dame Edna.
No one
with a German accent.
Yeah, I guess. Just like it's so, we're looking, this is crappy SD footage shot in 1983 or whatever, and it's just so clear that this is a man, from the physique, from his face, from everything. Like, you just have to buy into the funniness of the sitcom logic.
Yeah. And look, I'll say this. I just thought that they had a man playing a woman and that was going to be a big reveal later on because we're watching a murder mystery thing.
Obviously.
I didn't pick out, though, that it was one of the cast of characters that we had already met.
I did, because I started looking for someone with a mustache or something like that, and someone who is notably absent.
Every time that person was there.
And obviously, as we start getting into the story, it becomes very clear that it is, in fact, the captain who is
and
posing
I did actually wonder and thought to myself, because I wasn't trying to like say all these things that we'll talk about on the podcast out loud. I was like, it's weird that they introduced the captain, but he's not been around like for this entire dinner. Yep. This is weird. In that first like nighttime scene,
Gene Siskel's law of superfluous characters.
There you go.
There's a character that they're spending time on, but you can't quite figure out what their purpose is in the story. That's your killer.
So you know what? You say that because that's the exact same thing I had in my head when I knew who the murderer was in the Golden Girls episode.
Yeah. The basic shape of this is something that's going to repeat again and again, where you have murder number one, which is the obviously fake murder for fun.
Right, and everyone's like, yeah, we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, in this case, we have a woman is killed during their fancy dinner, and the joke there is
No, a woman?
Yeah, because remember, Mr. Jefferson is constantly insulting her. Remember, he's constantly talking about how old she looks, and she keeps
my gosh,
she stops being dead to like yell at him.
Yell at him. That's right. There were these three people sitting there at dinner, and they're introduced as like, oh, this is this woman and her husband and her daughter or niece or something, and or whatever, some sort of familial relations. And then she's dead, and they're like, I couldn't possibly do it because of this. Well, I couldn't possibly do it because of this. And then they leave.
Yeah, they're like doing exactly, like sort of trotting out their little little character and persona.
Right.
This is my alibi. This is my motive.
And they say so many nasty things about the woman who's lying there dead that she like gets up and is like, and she, I think the appropriate term is hatchet face. You know, when you like snarl your lip up and you look like a hard-lived woman. She's got like that hatchet face where she like snarls her lip up and she's like bugs her eyes out and is like, if he's gonna keep talking about me like this, like she gets all mad.
Yeah. So Jefferson, makes the dead body get up and walk away because she can't take his insults anymore. The whole big clue with this first fake murder is that the dagger has BC on it, the initials BC.
Right.
Right. So all of these little mystery writers we just explained, each one has their own little explanation. Oh, well, obviously he was traveling in Canada and this is the mark of British Columbia. And
and one of the kids also, or one of the like family members, their initials were BC.
Yeah. Sherman Helmsley or Mr. Jefferson thinks that Bill Cosby did it.
You're calling him like you're so formal with him. Why is he? Are you Florence? Do you have to call him Mr. Jefferson?
I guess because I'm forgetting his first name sometimes.
George.
But George thinks that Bill Cosby did it. That's kind of a funny moment.
Yes, because BC is Bill Cosby. But then he also says, no, I know what it is. It's BC because she was murdered before Christ.
Right, because that's how old she is. But so, what you have, is this cruise ship situation. Everyone's kind of mingling around, hanging out, discussing, here's my theory. Meanwhile, this classy, sexy writer is mingling with Florence. They're taking a liking to each other. And then he drops dead, quote unquote, for real.
Right.
And that's when the real peril begins.
Yeah, he has been poisoned by his wine.
Yeah, we should mention he came on with his mystery kit, this like suitcase.
Yeah,
that
he
he's
says,
like,
this
only
is my
I can open this.
crime-solving kit.
Yeah, and it turns out to be his wine.
Right, and I never leave it out of my sight, and only I have the key and whatever. And so he opens it up. Turns out it's a fancy bottle of wine. He goes to pour himself and Florence a glass. He takes a sip, immediately keels over poisoned.
Yeah, and so the funny thing is now, and again, we're going to have the same story pop up again and again. This idea of like, okay, everybody, hold the phone. This is a real murder. This isn't part of the show. But it's so funny how this Stewart character, he still has that same showy, he's still going like, well, what that means is the murderer is in this very room. Like,
right.
He's not talking about this real murder any differently than he was talking about the fun make-believe murder.
Right.
But he's going, all right, everyone, let's go back to our rooms or whatever because, show's over. This guy's dead.
It's one of us, and so we should all hide out.
Yeah.
It's scary.
They also they find a note from the murderer, like a Zodiac style note that says, I will kill everybody.
Every one of you in this room is going to die. And so they're like, ah!
Yeah, and so this is what started reminding me of Murder by Death, is because then you get like the private quarters scenes.
Yes.
You get Wheezy and George back in their bedroom and having the thing of, they're both sleeping fully clothed in their like crumply tuxedos and stuff.
Right, because they don't want to be murdered in their sleep and then have the police investigate their murder with them in their PJs.
Yeah, Florence comes in because she's scared, and then the captain comes in, and, there's all sorts of funny stuff. Prove you're the captain, prove you're Florence.
Right.
George goes, prove you're the captain. What time does Love Boat come on?
Yes, that's right.
But,
and then, so the captain comes in and says, we have to all go back to the main room. I have a few important things to tell you, and I think it's probably best that we're all together.
Yeah, and that's when we start the sort of, again, this is the subtrope that it's taking from the Agatha Christie murders and stuff, the drawing room scene, which granted was the same in this case as the murder room, but it's like, let's gather everybody together. We've all been separate for a while, and now we're gonna like figure everything out.
Yeah. So the Duchess doesn't show up. Like, the captain tells them what's going on.
Right.
Is like, hey, we went to wire to shore to tell them that there was this issue, but our radio has been sabotaged, so we don't have any communication. We're just going to have to, wait it out and go back to shore. they're like, hey, where's the Duchess? And he says, oh, the Duchess is having this issue with her insulin. I've posted a guard outside her door, so she can't join us, but she's safe. I've made sure she's safe. I've filled her in on the information. So then they're like, wait, the Duchess has insulin. The only way that he must have been poisoned. The only way the wine bottle could be poisoned would be by a syringe through the cork. Right. And the Duchess had syringes because she was on insulin. So it must be her. Let's go question her. So they all tromp off to her stateroom.
Yeah. During this whole scene, there's like these two competing theories because it's George versus the rest of the detectives. So they find out, the captain confirms, like, the wine was poisoned in the bottle.
Right.
That is
the bottle
the
of the wine was poisoned, not just the glass.
Because at first, I think before they even know that, George is like, well, he killed himself and then wrote that note to throw us off the scent. So, you're an idiot. No one believes him. Then when they find out about the wine, he must have drilled a hole into the bottom of the barrel or bottom of the wine. Yeah. No, you idiot. It's obviously a syringe through the top. So, like, at every step, George is sort of on his own, and all the mystery authors together are like, just like you said, we've got it figured out. It was the Duchess using her hypodermic needle from her insulin that they mentioned earlier to inject poison through the cork into the wine. And at this point now, I've long since figured out this captain that's going like, well, I guess it's up to me to arrest the Duchess, is in fact the Duchess. And it's very funny that all of these mystery writers
aren't seeing. Well, nobody's seeing it. Well, so the thing that's interesting because you had figured that already out the first, watching it through. I figured it out when they went to the Duchess's cabin and he was talking to himself. I was like, okay.
This ridiculous radio play where he's like, you all wait out here. I'll go inside and close the door, and you'll probably hear the sounds of me and the Duchess, who are two completely distinct people talking to each other. Yeah.
But before we got there, I thought they were all wrong to begin with, even the mystery writers, because they were talking about how the bottle of wine was poisoned. And I was like, well, if the bottle of wine was poisoned, it was inside of a locked box that was locked before he got on board. Obviously, whoever poisoned him did it before he got on board. And so I was just like, okay, well, all this happened before we even got on the cruise. Like, I was like, why are they not even considering that possibility? Yeah. Not paying any attention at all to the fact that the captain is the Duchess. Like, didn't see it, was not even curious about it.
That is fine. Yeah, to me, it's just like when you see, in something like this, when you see the woman who is actually a man in disguise, like I said,
you start looking for the man that's missing.
Well, no, it's the mustache. The flip side of that is one of the men has a mustache to make him look even more different. Two of them did,
because the fancy British guy did, but he was always there, at the same time as the Duchess.
And his mustache looked more real.
Yeah. But so then we go to the Duchess's stateroom. We get this little, like you said, radio play through the door.
Funny. We're just out in the hallway, and we just hear this guy go like, "No, Duchess, don't do that! Ow, you've clobbered me! Don't escape out of the window! Oh, darn!"
And so when it first started, I was like, that's so weird. Why aren't they showing us this conversation? Did they not have enough money to build another stateroom? Like, what's going on? And then I was like, oh God, I'm dumb. Of course, he's having a conversation with himself. So they all go rushing in, once they hear the captain get clobbered, and he's like, she's escaped out the window. And George runs over to the window and knocks over some figurines that were on the dresser that she climbed on to get out the window, and everyone starts giving him shit for, messing up the stateroom and being so clumsy. And so then off they all trudge. They're like, well, she got away. She must be heading for the lifeboats. We'll go back to the other room. Yeah.
At least we're not going to be killed by this,
Clearly she was the murderer. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're like, all right, all we can do now is go back home and tell the authorities. And that's when George is like, oh no.
Yeah. They're all toasting themselves up in the bar again and saying we're so smart, and George is feeling all bad about himself.
Yes.
Wheezy has to go cheer him up because he's like, I'm a loser. Thanks for this present, Wheezy. I couldn't do anything. I'm a loser.
Yeah, and then I think it's Florence that mentions something about him having knocked over the statuette. That gets the gears rolling in his mind. Wait a minute, if the Duchess escaped out of that window, why would all those figurines be there for me to knock over? And then he gets up and says, all right, everyone, take your seats. Jacques, I know who did it, and let's go. And he gives...
Jacques.
That's what my dad used to always say when we played Clue.
That's so funny. I thought it was Jacques. Like,
yeah, no, it is.
Yeah,
I'm just
okay.
saying it's simple. And yeah, he gives the whole Hercule Poirot explanation that the Duchess is in fact the captain, rips off the captain's fake mustache, right?
No, he pulls down the captain's pants.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yes. So the writer that got murdered, his whole thing, every one of his books is actually a true story. It features real people, not necessarily
We
people that
established that
murdered, during the
just
thing.
like public figures.
But
and
like,
stuff.
yes, people that have been in the public eye or had some sort of like public scandal.
And everyone loves to speculate who they represent.
Exactly. And so one of his novels was the Captain in Nylons. And that was all about a Navy captain that was dishonorably discharged because he was found to be dressing in women's clothing while captaining this Navy vessel, and that was not allowed. And so he was dishonorably discharged. And so this captain is that captain, and he pulls down his pants and he's wearing ladies' undergarments and like a garter belt and nylons to hold up his little stockings. And so there you go. So he's like, and then the captain himself rips off his own mustache and pulls out a gun and is like, you got me. This is, I'm going to get you all now. And I think I'm going to start with you first. Come here, Mr. Jefferson.
Yeah,
and he pulls.
In his whole thing of like, oh, I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you. He's going. He says, it was easy to impersonate the Duchess. None of you had ever met her, and I imagine him looking at himself in the mirror with this wig and dress on and going, well, this is perfect. They've never met her. How could they possibly
How could they
suspect?
possibly know? All German old women look a little bit like men, right? And so he pulls the trigger on the gun and it's a lighter. It's not a real gun. It's one of those gun lighters. And he lights a cigar and he's like, that you are going to get the trophy for solving the murder. And then everyone's like, oh, wait, this was not a real murder. This was the game. Oh, brilliant. And they're like
then the
applauding.
guy who was allegedly murdered comes out and he's happy to see everybody. And he
Take Florence out on that date.
He assures Florence that his interest in her was not part of the game. He really does want to take her out. And yes, so this is, like I keep saying, this is the first of several times where we're going to have to accept that part of this experience that you're being sold is that they convince you are in mortal danger.
Right.
In some cases, they're going to convince you that you are suspected of murder and going to the gas chamber.
Yes.
And in this case, it's just that a real person has been killed and you might be next.
You might be next.
But yeah, this was fun. Look, I agree with you that in terms of it being a two-parter, it does start to be a little bit like, this would have been a very fun single episode.
Yeah.
You were kind of pushing your luck.
Yeah,
But,
it's just so very talky.
yeah, it is. But like I said, I respect the fact that the stuff that it's parodying, those Hercule Poirot mysteries like Death on the Nile, where it's all, trying to solve a murder on a cruise ship, that's what they're like. It's just a bunch of dialogue scenes of people talking in different rooms in the ship, until eventually he decides he knows
Yeah,
who
but the
did it.
writing is better. I think at this point, Norman Lear had left the show.
Yeah,
so.
no, that's true. It does just become an excuse for more, we brought Florence because she's shark repellent.
Right.
There's just lots of stuff like that. But I still appreciate it was a fun change of pace. And again, I appreciated the, all of the sort of minor celebrity sitcom semi-royalty that they're bringing on to do the different, mystery
that was
characters
definitely
and
fun.
stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's continue with Golden Girls.
Season 7, Episode 2, The Case of the Libertine Belle.
Yeah, so this starts pretty much right off with Blanche getting a call from...
She is on the board of some society or some museum or whatever, and they got the permission to do this murder mystery event as a fundraiser.
Yeah.
And it
okay.
had been her idea, and she was up for a job as an assistant to like the guy who runs the society or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And she was excited because she had been flirting with him and wanting, and was, you know, like she'd been trying to get this assistant job and also date the guy who's in charge.
Yeah, okay. So she's arranged for this sort of group trip to this murder mystery. This one, is this a cruise also? No, this is just a fancy dinner somewhere.
Exactly. And it's in a hotel.
Yeah, it kind of looks the same as the Jeffersons one.
It's like the Saved by the Bell one. They're going, instead of going to a mansion, they're going to, you know, like a really nice hotel or an Airbnb or something, and it's like that.
Yeah, but so you talk about how on the Jeffersons, how they conveniently allow George to bring his 2+1s while everyone else comes solo. In this case, we have Blanche going on the phone. Oh, what's that? I need to bring 3 more people in order to get the group rate. So basically, even though...
Well, she wasn't on the phone doing
she explains that to them.
Yeah,
but even though that this is something that Blanche is doing for her work, and she's arranging this
society,
for whatever group this is, and has nothing to do with the
for.
other Golden Girls, you know, it somehow manages to work itself out that she needs Dorothy, Sophia, and Rose to come with to get this group rate. Ergo, we get the whole Golden Girls.
Yeah, we get to have the and Dorothy is beside herself with excitement.
Yes.
She's like, do I?
She explains that she loves Dashiell Hammond and Raymond Chandler, and she starts quoting from memory passages from their novels to show like just how much of like a hard-boiled...
Isn't she an English teacher?
That sounds right. She's certainly a teacher. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. But then again, like, would English teachers, I mean, my aunt is into murder mystery
mysteries, yes.
So yeah, that's the premise. We're all going to this murder mystery weekend. This, you know, this is not a 2-parter, so everything is established very efficiently.
Yes.
I have the note, Blanche's pink frill disrupts the color palette of the party.
Because it stands out so much.
When we get there, it's this fancy, it looks like a scene out of Clue or Murder by Death or something, this fancy old mansion. Everyone's dressed really nice. That's something across all 3 of these ones that are
and
the, like,
she's
experience.
Wearing like a Chiquita banana
or just like a hot
top.
Pink.
But as I'm saying, it's ruffled like that, and it's totally off her shoulders.
Yes.
So she is like, you know, she looks very naked
and
as compared to everyone else.
Color that just is the complete different vibe as like everything else on your television set. So what happens here?
So they're having the dinner, and same as the Jeffersons. There is a woman and 2 men, and they're introduced as, oh, you know, this is the daughter, and this is the son, and here's the dad, and he, you know, and his new wife, and she's younger than the daughter, and whatever. So it was 4 people, not 3. And Rose had already figured out that they were actors, right? Because there was a joke where they said to Rose, like, okay, you know, wander around and figure out who the actors are. And so she walks over to their table and was like, hey, what do you think about the coffee? And the daughter who's sitting at the table, who's a middle-aged woman, is like, oh, it's great. And Rose was like, well, there's an actor.
Yeah.
And that does turn out to be the table full of actors. The 92-year-old, very wealthy father of the family keels over dead. He's got a knife in his back, or no, he's got a
rare Mayan sacrificial dagger. It's a couple.
Yes,
so one of them is dagger, one of them's gun.
Right. So the lights go out. He is shot in the head, and the young bride, the new young, like 24-year-old bride to this 92-year-old man, has her throat slit. Yeah. So they're both laying there, like he's slumped over, she's slumped back, and the 2 children are like, well, I couldn't possibly have done it because why would I I don't care.
Grown-up children.
Yeah, it's the grown-up children. Oh, I don't, I love my father. I wouldn't do that. And, well, I couldn't possibly have done it. Why would I want to kill the man who gives me a job or whatever?
And then we get like all, just like with the other one, the room is just a buzz for a while with all different theories and everyone and there's this other woman that is up for the same job that Blanche wants.
Poppy,
that the whole time.
Or Posey. Her name's Posey.
Blanche is worried that she's gonna solve it. She's her rival.
Right, because if she solves it, then the guy, whatever his name was, the boss of the place, I think his name was like Kendall or something, Mr. Kendall, or his first name was Kendall. But if Posey solves it, then he'll think she's really smart and she'll get the job. Yeah. So she's like, Dorothy, we have to solve it. Yeah. And we get some amazing scenes of Blanche flirting with everyone.
Oh, yeah. She has this catchphrase she keeps saying where she goes, I do declare your sweet words could charm the morning dew right off a honeysuckle. And she says that over and over.
Wow. And so that just really took me to a Michael Scott moment because in The Office, we have Michael Scott and all the rest of them doing Southern accents. Yeah. And he very much sounded like you just did by saying, I do declare a million times.
A lot of I do declares. But this is all very fun. There's just lots of, even before the murder, the Golden Girls are on fire with all their little jabs at each other and interacting with all these other stuffed shirt people. And then, after the murder, everyone's trying to figure it out. And then Dorothy kind of takes the stage and she starts doing the Poirot style, like, okay, I'm going to tell it like it is. There's one point where she says, she goes, patricide is statistically a male crime, but women do often murder their mothers. And goes right to Sophia. Yes. So she's just like really kind of like holding court. And
right. Well, because Posey has an idea. And I think Posey says, the murderer is the daughter or whatever, and the guy who's running the thing is like, you are incorrect.
Yeah. Well, we have to mention this one and the next one, unlike the Jeffersons, have this thing of the inspector, quote unquote, shows up. This guy in a trench coat.
And every one of these people, like the inspector is Todd Sussman, who's a character actor you've seen in a million things. There's a waiter played by Tony Plana, who I've seen in a million things. Like, there's just all of these character actors that pop up in this. And so, so before Dorothy takes the stage, this Posey woman thinks she has it solved. And he said, those are, they have not committed the crimes that you have said they've committed or whatever. And so then Dorothy comes up, does her whole spiel, and it's actually the opposite of what Posey said. Yeah. And both of the siblings did commit a murder, but they tried to frame the other one for it. And so they murdered the opposite people than
the gift of the Magi.
Right, exactly. And so Dorothy gets the prize and everyone applauds her. And then they all are like, what a fun weekend. Let's go up to bed.
He has a funny line where, she's explaining the whole thing, what the motives are, how they had the different weapons and stuff. It's because at the end of her explanation, Dorothy goes, ha. Yeah. And so he says, you've given us a who and a how and a ha. And that tickled me. And so, they get to all go off, just like the other one, they get to all go off to their respective chambers. You're talking about the recognizable actors. This room service actor shows up. He's Leland Orser, he's from Alien Requiem. And
that's right. I forgot about him too.
I don't know what happened. Somebody else, the same thing happened. Okay. Someone dies.
Right. So they are all getting ready to go up to their rooms. Blanche is just so excited that Posey got it wrong. And so then the guy that she wants to date and also work for comes over and is like, hey, let's get together or whatever. And so she gives him her room key. Mm-hmm. And so she's all excited. She comes and tells the girls, Rose, I know we were going to share a room, but I need the room key because he's going to stay in my room tonight. And I'm going to get this job and I'm going to get the man and it's going to be great. And so she goes up, and then the next scene scene is just sort of like zoomed in on the bathroom door that we hear Blanche saying from behind it, "Oh, honey, I'll be right out." You know, she's like, "I just got to do a little bit more." And she's getting all ready to come out and get all sexy time with this guy. And then she comes out, camera zooms out. We see the rest of the room, and the guy's dead with a knife in his back.
Yeah. And so, you know, she calls the rest of the girls. They check to see if he's really dead.
Knife in his chest.
Yeah. They check to see if he's really dead. Dorothy puts a mirror underneath his nose. She goes,
which happens in like the pilot. She does that to Sophia.
Oh, that's funny, because that's her joke. She goes, I do this every morning with Ma, and if it fogs up, then I get the coffee going.
Yeah, exactly. She says that, but it actually does. It's like a callback, because she actually does that in another episode. Like, I remember it from season 1 when we first started rewatching the Golden Girls. And so anyway, but yeah, so she does that, and she's like, "Oh, he's really dead." So yeah, so then we're like, "Oh my God, it's been a real murder." Now we get our switcheroo, and everyone's got to figure out, you know, the new real detective comes in, right? They have the second real detective. That guy comes in, and he's trying to run the show. And, you know, it's so funny, because it's like, how do these people not figure out it's a fake murder right away when things don't immediately change tone and
like Stewart in the last one.
Exactly. But anyway, you all have to stay here. None of you can leave. Please keep messing with the crime scene.
Yeah, well, not just that. This is the one that introduces the idea where they think Blanche did it.
Yes.
And Rose is starting to take that seriously.
Because they were the only one in the room together. Like, they were the only ones there.
And so they start speculating, kind of like when they went to prison in the last Golden Girls episode. We talked about what's going to happen to me. Am I going to get the chair? Whatever. Rose is losing faith in Blanche, because there's a joke earlier they established that Blanche took Rose's earrings and lied about it.
So yeah, Rose is losing faith, and then Posey stands up again and is like, "I figured it out. Blanche is the murderer. She was the only one in the room. I saw her give her key to him and then go get the only other key from Rose, so no one else could possibly get in the room. He was staying in my room." Bombshell dropped. And he was going to her room to let her down easy and tell her she didn't get the job. And she, in a fit of jealous rage, threw her dress off onto the bed and stabbed him in the chest.
Well, there's a funny line about that. She goes, she tore her dress off, and Rose goes, "Oh, that's Velcro. It's just the illusion of a tear."
That's funny. I didn't catch that. And so anyway, so that's it. They're going to go arrest Blanche. And Dorothy is like, "Now wait just a minute."
Yeah. Now this is the old trope from Encyclopedia Brown and so many other like mystery things where the killer or the culprit has too much information.
Right.
Right. They told you a detail that they wouldn't have known unless they were the killer.
Exactly.
And I don't even remember what it is in this one. It's something that she couldn't have known.
The dress, Blanche's dress, was laid on the bed next to the body.
Which she wouldn't know without having been in the room, yada, yada. And so, yeah, this is another one where no sooner is it solved than we basically get, "Surprise, I'm not really dead. This was all just to make it more fun for you."
Right, exactly. So Blanche is about to get arrested, and Dorothy comes out, and she's like, "You just wait. I know what happened. There's no way she could have known that." And she lays it all out, and they're like, "Yay, Dorothy, you did it again." And they all cheer her, and everyone, and like the Golden Girls are all like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And then he's like, "Oh, this was so fun. Sorry to scare you, Blanche." And she's like, "Oh, I was in on it all along." And they were like, "Were you really?" And she was like, "No." But turns out Posey was in on it all along, and he was in on it.
She would have had to be unless she actually killed him.
Right. And then we find out that Rose a little bit was in on it all along. They asked her to put defogger on the compact.
Yes.
In case someone tried to check to see if he was breathing.
Yes, which to me, that was kind of an unsatisfying solution, because this whole time I'm thinking like...
I just figured he had was holding his breath.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they determine to take this seriously as a murder, is that the mirror didn't fog up. And so to me, like, the whole thing was hanging on that. So just to find out, oh no, we put D. Fogger. First I was like, is that even a real thing?
Well, but also the new inspector, like the new police guy, came in, put 2 fingers on his wrist and was like, yep, he's dead. Let's get out of here. And like ushers everybody out of the crime scene. Yeah. And so, he didn't have to hold his breath long if that's what he was doing. I thought they were just gonna, they were just giving it a little moment. And the reason they did that was so Blanche could say to Rose, why would you do that and not tell anybody? Like what? And then Rose can get her comeuppance, or Blanche can get her comeuppance for stealing Rose's earrings.
Yeah. Yeah. So this one, it's not stretched out like the Jeffersons was. I feel like, it has the same funny thing of like, we scared you and made you think you were really murdered or whatever. It's funny, it's still like chock full with all these different people and characters and stuff, but they don't have as much fun with it, I feel like, as they did with the Jeffersons. I
mean, yes and no. The Jeffersons is always like, I don't know. I think this was a much better show, and it was very fun. And I think if we'd been watching Golden Girls along and then this episode popped up, it would be like, woo, this is so fun, because it is different. It's out of the house. It's a different kind of caper.
Well, part of it is that we did just watch that one where they got sent to prison.
Where they got sent to jail.
And it's such a similar beat.
Good. Yeah. Well, but the one where they get sent to jail is so good. And this one is good. It's just not as good as that one.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed this. I enjoyed this more than the Jeffersons.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to Saved by the Bell.
Season, we're not sure. Episode, it depends on what streaming service you're on. Mystery Weekend. This, just in terms of pure nostalgia and watchability, this is one of my favorite 20-minute chunks of entertainment ever put to magnetic videotape. This is just, I loved this whenever it would get to this episode. I think the mall episode and the Mystery Weekend episode of Saved by the Bell are both these self-contained things where they're entirely in a mall or a mystery house, respectively. Yeah, no Mr. Belding in this.
No Belding, no parents, no nothing. It's just them having a little adventure. And like I said before, it's just this vicarious thing. You don't even need the murder element. Just the idea of like, oh, this would be so cool if my friends and I got to go to this manner, and the way that it's like their itinerary is very sort of loose, so they have time to kind of like hang out and go, it's always like, oh, go make yourself comfortable in your room, and then dinner will be served at 8,
right.
And like all that kind of thing. I thought like, oh, that would be so cool. You would like go and get your stuff settled in, and then you would go to dinner at 8. And I just like, I love this whole idea. And the way they're dressed up, they're all wearing these like nice outfits and stuff. The girls are all looking great. I like Zach's his little colorful suit, like he's from, like Boys to Men or something. I just love the whole aesthetic of this.
Yeah, same. This is a big nostalgia episode for me. It's one of those ones that you would do for like a sweeps week, right? Because we're just like putting a twist in it, putting a twist on the normal thing. I remember watching this episode as a kid. I remember looking forward to like when I would see it on the TV guide that it was going to come, it would be because it ran in syndication, and there were always like 3 different channels that had Saved by the Bell on. Yeah. So you could like flip through them and find one you wanted. So like this show. And it's been fun to go back to it and be like, oh no, this definitely still is a good episode of Saved by the Bell. It's not it's the same as always, right?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, like we say every time, it's a show made for kids. But what's funny to me watching all of these now and seeing how, of course, they're all very simplistic and obvious and stuff, but I see why I like them so much, because it's like the movies that they're riffing on, like, especially in those times,
I hadn't seen those.
Yeah,
I hadn't
and
seen
you
those
couldn't really,
movies.
like I said, Clue and Murder by Death, absolutely. But those even are parodies. It's like if you tried to watch like the Maltese Falcon or something.
Right. Well, and I don't
Chinatown,
know that I had seen Clue when I was like 10 years old anyway.
Yeah, I'm just saying that like the actual movies and books or whatever that are these mysteries, they do tend to be a little bit more complicated and grown up and maybe hard to follow and stuff. And so, yeah, these dumb little 25-minute things where there's like one little twist and turn was like kind of my speed when I was younger.
Yeah,
so
totally.
this one's a radio contest. We established that very economically.
Lisa won the radio contest, and so she got to bring all of her friends on this trip.
Yeah, and so we got, and this was another thing I loved for some reason as a kid, the host of this whole thing is Mr. Jameson.
Yes.
I loved that name for some reason.
He is from Square One.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm fairly certain. Every time I was like, oh, I think that's the guy from Square One.
That's funny. Yeah, he's this skinny,
redhead,
sort of ginger guy. Yeah. So he welcomes them in. He's sort of in charge of the whole thing. And then you have a pianist and a French maid.
And a butler.
Yes, a butler who is a sort of like Igor, like weird looking guy.
Yeah, he also has a hatchet face. He's like snarly.
Yeah, but I would say of all of these three that we've seen that sort of follow this format, I like the way this one is. Like, well, first of all, it's funny how just like every other Saved by the Bell episode, whether they're at school or not, it's like they're doing a thing that's open to all people, but 6 out of the 9 or 10 people that are doing it are the core cast of Saved by the Bell, right? Yeah. So in this case, this is not a private event just for them.
No.
They are among this other group, but it's literally...
there are more of them than there are other people.
It is our 6 Saved by the Bell cast and 2 other couples.
Yeah.
But so anyway, but I like the way this is set up, though, that you're sort of hanging out in the parlor, chit-chatting with the other guests, and you're observing like, oh, okay, there's something going on between the pianist and the French maid, which I guess was sort of what they all were trying to do. But this one just kind of reads to me more cleanly.
Yeah.
But I want to stop and ask this. The stereotype of the French maid, right, which of course we have in Clue, we have Yvette. Where did this come from? This notion that a sort of spooky old manor would have a French maid? Like, what?
Well, so my assumption would be it's like an English, like, landed gentry thing.
Explain. I don't know what that means.
Just that they're super wealthy, and when the servant class, that sort of went by the wayside, right? Then maybe you would have a person who would, but it's also like a sexual fantasy.
Oh yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. There is this, it's a trope. It's this thing of this sexy French maid that is clearly like a part of this whole tapestry of this sort of murder mystery thing, motif. And I just wonder, like, was that real? Is there some reason why French women tended to be maids?
No, I think that it probably was just like I think it's a murder mystery.
Like,
trope.
did it just start from some famous play or TV show?
And
or
the
movie?
way that it was explained there was that, we've got this, but she's always been this character that you could potentially think would be a really strong suspect.
Oh, yes.
Because of the sexiness, because of the affair.
She's a sex pot and
right,
everything.
and like that she's likely having with the, master or one of the other characters or something. Okay, so apparently it comes from like this idea of like a governess in the Victorian age or a maid, again, the like landed gentry English. And it was having a person in the house that was either like a lady's maid to the children, a lady's maid to like the teenage girls, or a governess to the children would mean that they would be able to learn French. And it was you always wanted your children, posh children, speak English and French.
Interesting. All right. Well, that explains the French maid thing. So yeah, everyone's like sort of hanging around this parlor room. We learn that Mr. Jameson's defining characteristic is he smokes cigarettes, right? Even with a room full of teenagers, he lights up a cigarette. And so everyone asks him to put that out. He's like, okay,
it's so
fine.
gross. They're like always
just so we've established I smoke cigarettes, right?
Everybody and he does it multiple times. He'll like light a cigarette when people are in the room with him and then immediately put it out.
Yeah. The French maid is coming on to Zack, right? We get a little bit of that, you know.
Well, first she's coming on to the piano player. But
they have a whole thing going.
The guys are all super into her. So she just sort of leans into it.
Screech shows up, not unlike George Jefferson, dressed in deerstalker hat and Sherlock Holmes-esque cape, right? They've all had a chance to go to their chambers and change for dinner. So he comes in dressed with the deerstalker cap. He says, "Elementary, my dear Zacky boy," which I thought was, you know, it's a nice little thing for Screech. And then, that's where I put the note that just like at school, most of the participants are the Saved by the Bell gang. The sort of first make-believe murder happens. It's the pianist, right? He drops dead.
Right after the, we see the cast of the manor, of the murder mystery manor, all have an issue with the amount of flirting that the French maid is doing with the piano player. And so Jameson comes over and is like, don't you have guests to serve or don't you have something to clean? He's trying to like move her on and she gives him attitude. And then the butler comes over and is like, drink, sir, and interrupts them and looks all mad as well that, you know, she's flirting with the piano player instead of him. And so off she goes, and then the piano player takes a sip of the drink and immediately keels over dead.
Yeah. That's how he dies. Zack starts his attempt at the drawing room explanation. He's like, okay, everybody settle down. Let me explain. I know who did it. He says, Butler did it, you know, tale as old as time. And then the butler walks in. He's been stabbed. Yep.
He's been stabbed in the back. He keels over with all their first course of dinner.
Yeah. And then we get our requisite inspector guy, our guy in the brown trench coat and the hat that comes in and says, oh, hey, everybody, I'm the inspector. And then he pretty quickly gets killed by arrows, right? Everyone suspects the maid, and the inspector gets shot full of arrows in his back. We have like 3 murders, like pretty much right in a row. All of the deaths, and this is why I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Saved by the Bell makes more sense than the other ones. I think the way it plays out is the pianist, then the butler, then the inspector all die in these sort of fake cartoony ways.
Right. The lights go out and he's got back full of arrows.
Stabbed, whatever. And then one of the old ladies, one of the few non-Saved by the Bell participants in this thing goes, oh my word, my pearls have been stolen or
Somebody
whatever.
Stole my necklace. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's when Mr. Jameson goes, whoa, stop everything. That's not part of the game. And everyone starts to take it seriously. And then what happens a few minutes later is they're walking through the lobby and this battle axe thing comes down from like the suit of armor, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's not part of the game either.
That's right, because Lisa pushes him out of the way, so they're all, you're exactly right. Yes, okay, so you're right, they have to solve all 3 of those murders, but those are the ones in the game, and then her necklace goes missing, and they're like, hold on, there is somebody here. This isn't, that's not good. We got to figure it out. They go into the foyer again, and that's when the axe thing falls over. Lisa sees it coming, pushes Jameson out of the way, and Jameson is like, guys, there's an actual criminal on the loose. Everyone go pack and let's get out of here. Yeah, because
of the battle axe.
Because I was almost murdered and somebody has stolen her necklace and this is a dangerous place to be. Don't worry, he says to Lisa and Zack after everybody else has gone, I'll give you some free passes.
Oh, yes.
Because your weekend got ruined, so just come find me before you leave.
Yeah. Now, he doesn't say passes. He says vouchers. And I only know that because they say the word vouchers like 27 times over the course of the last 6 minutes or so of this show. Yeah, it's funny how they take this falling axe thing very seriously. Because like I said, in a way that weirdly makes this the most reasonable, they don't try to convince these characters that they've seen actual murder.
An actual murder.
They're not saying you're going to jail for murder or that guy is really a dead body. They're just saying this is actually dangerous because apparently somebody's stealing things and apparently somebody rigged this night axe to fall on me.
Right, yeah.
And so everyone go to your room, get your stuff together. And yeah, I find it so funny that he's like, now, of course, you're going to want to come back here in a few weeks and do this all over again. So let me get these vouchers for you. And yeah, then there's a scene, I think, with Zack and Lisa.
So they are, they're up and they're packing and the girls come in and they're like, well, we're done. Lisa's the one that shoos everybody out. She's like, okay, you guys go get the car started and get the car packed up and I'll help Zack finish packing.
Right.
And so then, because Lisa is laying the groundwork so that Zack can get accused for everything.
Yes, but part of that groundwork is also Zack being with Mr. Jameson in his back office and Mr. Jameson accessing his safe.
Lisa says to Zack, I'll finish packing for you. Yes. We forgot to get the vouchers.
You get the vouchers, the precious vouchers.
Yeah.
Get the vouchers. So Zack goes to Mr. Jameson's office and it just cracked me up because I didn't remember this detail about the fake money that we're about to get to, where Mr. Jameson's like, oh yes, you need your vouchers so you could come back next time for free. And so he takes down a painting from the wall and it goes into a safe and everything. This is to get vouchers, to get your coupons.
Yes.
Wouldn't that just be in your desk drawer? I just found that so funny.
Maybe the weekend was very expensive. It was a very expensive weekend.
So yeah, he gives him this envelope, but it all starts to make sense because what he's giving him isn't vouchers, it's money. He's giving him an envelope full of cash.
But Zack doesn't know because he doesn't open it.
No.
And so then again, the lights go out and a scream happens and the lights come back on and Jameson is gone and the office has been tossed even before Zack gets there. Like it's all a mess, but nobody else knows that. And so then everybody comes running in and they find Zack about to go out the door with this envelope in his hand. They immediately take it from him and he's got a handful of money and they're like, oh my God, he's killed Jameson. He's the one, he's the bad guy. And he's like, no, I'm not. I didn't. He's trying to defend himself just like Blanche was trying to defend herself. And he's trying to explain about all these like coincidences that led him to being there. So they're like, okay, well, we'll go back and find Lisa. And they go back up and Lisa's not there and nothing's been packed and nobody can find her. And they're like, Zack, did you do something to Lisa too? Yeah. And he's like, no. And they're like, that's it. We're calling the real police. And the French maid runs off to call the real police and then they show up and it's very obviously Mr. Jameson dressed as a woman.
The real police, quote unquote, it's an inspector and just like this miscellaneous woman.
Well, there's two detectives.
But she's not. She's
in a
like
suit.
A strange.
She looks like a professional woman from the early 90s.
Yeah, she does not look like a law enforcement personnel to me, is what I'm saying. She just looks like
So the guy in the trench coat does?
Kind of, because he looked like one of these, your sort of stereotypical.
He looked like Columbo.
Detective. Yeah, exactly. But both of them look absolutely ridiculous.
Yes.
The woman is very clearly a man in drag.
It's Jameson in disguise.
And the man is like... He's just very obviously someone in disguise.
He's got a very big fake mustache.
Nothing about him is real.
And big glasses and a hat and super bushy eyebrows.
He looks like maybe he's a kid pretending to be a man. He's like, all you know is that this is not what this person actually looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
So then they are going after Zack hard, and he again is trying to explain. So then they interview all of the kids.
They are character witnesses, all of his friends. They bring up all of his various misdeeds from
Right.
past Saved by the Bell episodes.
And say that, like, no, he's the most honest person I ever met, except for the time he lied about this. No, he would never hurt anyone, except for the time that he put Screech in this thing, you know. And so they bring on, they're like, oh my God, Zack Morris is a psychopath, like we've all been saying all this time. And so they're like, wow, he's really bad. And so then they all are going off to bed because they're not going to be able to solve it that night or whatever. So they're all back in their rooms. And Zack is like, we're not going to bed, guys. We got to figure out this is a mystery. I didn't do it. And Slater and Screech are like, yeah, we don't really want to be here with you because we think you're a murderer. And he's like, come on, guys, you know I'm not. We got to figure this out. Lisa disappeared somehow. I locked her in from the outside. There was no way she could have gotten out of this room because she was so scared I had to lock her in.
Yeah, I love Screech's delivery when they're sneaking around looking for clues.
Oh, it is so Young Frankenstein.
And Zack goes like, oh, you know, they might see us in here. Kill the lights. And Screech goes, haven't you done enough killing?
Oh, that's what you're talking about. I thought you were talking about what do I do? If I just turn this candle, it's going to have a secret passageway?
That's what happens next. But I love the idea that Screech like really thinks he's a killer, but I don't know, just the way he said, haven't you done enough killing, just tickled me. But yeah, Screech discovers the passageway, just like Young Frankenstein and a million other mystery
and they
things.
crawl through and they end up, surprise, surprise, coming out of the fireplace in Jameson's office.
Yep, they find a telltale cigarette with some lipstick on it.
Yes.
How could one person have the same telltale traits of lipstick and cigarette smoking?
Who would
Zack declares his knowledge.
Yeah. But so this is the part that I remember from back when I was a kid. Lisa, earlier on in the episode, talks about how she got a mango kiwi twist drink because it matches her outfit. It's very pink. By the way, mango and kiwi don't make a pink drink. Okay. Just going to lay that out there. Mango is very like bright orangey yellow, more like yellowy orange, and kiwi is green. So it doesn't make a pink drink, but okay. She's got pink drink and she is carrying it around all night. And what she says is, I'm not going to drink it. I just like it. I'm just going to hold it because it matches my outfit. Well, when we see the cigarette with the lipstick there on the table in the room where Zack has now figured it all out, we also see a mango kiwi with a twist, whatever drink with lipstick on the rim that has been drunk. But Lisa said she wasn't going to drink the drink. So even when I was like 11 years old and saw this, I was like, well, somebody's trying to frame Lisa because they're drinking her drink and she said she wasn't going to drink it. It must be Yvette or the French maid. It must be, I was like, Lisa said she wasn't going to drink that drink. That's the clue. Turns out totally wrong. It was Lisa. She did drink her drink.
Yeah. Zack seeks an audience with everybody.
Yeah, he says, go get everybody. I've solved this murder.
Yeah, and he, again, it's right out of the Poirot mysteries or Columbo or anything. He says, okay, here's how it all went down. The lipstick on the cigarette means that the woman is Jameson. He rips off the woman's, this woman that we've never even, we know she's, part of the law enforcement, personnel, but she's not, again, it's the law of superfluous characters. She's not serving any purpose. She's just kind of hovering around.
She's there, yeah.
Yeah, and so he rips off the wig. It's Mr. Jameson in disguise, and the inspector guy is the weird butler in disguise.
He rips off his disguise, and he's the butler, and they're all like, you did it. It was, all along. We forgot to say that they did also, Lisa's whole thing of saying that she would pack the suitcase and sending Zack off, she also planted the necklace in Zack's suitcase. So they found that too. And that's why they were so sure it was him. So they figure it out, and then we find out that the woman with the necklace and that couple was in on it all along, and the other couple that had one line we don't know anything about.
Yeah, Mr. Jameson goes, good job, Zack. You realized that the game never stopped.
Yes.
And again, it's just like, yeah,
no shit.
We convinced you that you were going to jail and like totally freaked you out. And yes, like good for you for
Although this one would kind of work because they're kids.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it's not as extreme. It convinces them that they're in danger. It's not trying to convince them that people have actually already died.
Right.
And
but they convinced Zack that he was going to go to jail for,
but only
not murdering and not stealing.
Yeah. But yeah, in a weird way, this one does work a lot better for me because it just, I don't know, there's like, I feel like it uses the time of the episode more efficiently. Like it's a little bit more clear about the characters.
Well, they also had more sets, I feel like, because they had the secret passageway thing and they had the let's try to figure it out and go to these different places. Whereas in the Golden Girls, Dorothy just listens to people all talking in a dining room and then figures it out.
Yeah. And even like the 4 or 5 minutes that they gain from having it start at the manor instead of having the first act.
No, that's true.
It just helps them get like right into it. You know?
Yeah.
All right, let's finish this up with The Office.
Season 6, episode 10, Murder.
Yeah, so this one's definitely an outlier because it's not about going on a weekend or a cruise or something. This is like the boxed murder games that we talked about, but couldn't not include this. I love this episode of The Office. And this is not going to have a thing where it convinces anybody that there really was a murder.
No, because they all know they're playing. The intrigue in this and the thing that like makes them either want to keep playing or stop playing or, be a part of the game or not be a part of the game or whatever is that what's happening in the real world is Dunder Mifflin is about to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
And they're waiting on that news. They don't know. There's been an article in the Wall Street Journal that it might be happening.
Yeah. Just flipping through the surrounding episodes to get to this one on the streaming thing. This is season 6 of The Office. This is a very busy, plotty time. This is when Jim and Michael have been made co-managers. A few episodes earlier, they're experimenting with that power dynamic, and then a few episodes later, that gets undone. They're about to get bought out by Sabre a few episodes later, and they're going to introduce Kathy Bates as the new CEO. Pam has been made a salesperson. She's not the receptionist anymore.
Yep.
They got married earlier this season, Jim and Pam. So there's just
and Pam is pregnant. She keeps resting her hands on top of her belly, right? She's pregnant. And you've got Andy there. You've got Kimmy Schmidt is the receptionist.
Andy's been there for years now.
Aaron
but
I just mean
new.
it's a busy office too because there's like lots of people.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm getting at is like. It's weird. With all these kind of shows, with sitcoms in general, I'm kind of a purist. I wish that they would keep things the same. I prefer shows where it's kind of like, on day 827, it's the same setup on day 1. And so I personally don't need all of these ongoing stories about the changes in the office politics and the relationships and stuff like that. But The Office did a good job of like, even if you don't care about that stuff, they're always doing the kinds of stories episode by episode that they would have done in the beginning.
Right.
So this murder mystery thing is exactly the kind of Michael Scott story that they would have done early on, even if the show in general is getting bogged down with all of these larger stories.
We're not even bogged down. It's just running. It's like there's something running in the background.
This thing of what's going to become of Dunder Mifflin, are we going to get caught out? Are we going to go bankrupt? This is like stretched across and sort of repeated and reiterated over like the entire last third or even like latter half of the series, I would argue. And what I'm saying is like, I kind of wish they wouldn't do that, but it doesn't bother me because they're still like episode by episode doing these fun stories, So this one begins with them getting an email from David Wallace, the CFO, going, "You're probably alarmed about the article we all read in the journal, but don't worry, don't jump to any conclusions." And Aaron asks Michael, do you mean your dream journal? Are they talking about your dream journal?
No, Michael asks, what journal? And she goes, your dream journal? Yeah.
Yeah, and Michael goes, did you put that in my time capsule? So lots of fun, the whole cast speculating about what's going to happen. Dwight says you can all have jobs at my farm as human scarecrows,
It doesn't pay anything.
Michael is in his office listening to Rockabye on repeat to try to calm his nerves.
Yes.
So you've got this thing where the whole office is just like, well, they're scared and no one wants to do anything. And like I mentioned, this is during the time when Jim is co-manager. So he's telling Michael, look, we need to just put a brave face on and tell people to get to work and just hope for the best. And Michael is like, no, what we need is a distraction. We need the mother of all distractions. And I think I have an idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they call a staff meeting and Jim's like, all right, everybody, the best thing we can do is just keep plowing. We know it's going to be fine. We don't have any news and that's good news. And so, whatever. And then Michael's like, what? On his cell phone, taking a fake call. What happened? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And then he closes his phone and he's like, there's been a murder.
There's been a murder.
And he comes out with the box and then tries to give everybody characters.
Belle's Bourbon and Bullets is the name of the game. It's a murder in Savannah.
And all of a sudden he starts talking like this, I do declare.
Yes, it takes place in Savannah.
Yes.
And so, yes, he very much latches on to the sort of, what's the Tennessee Williams, the Glass Menagerie, sort of vibe, the Southern gentleman. And he says, I do declare over and over again. And it's just like the game I played with my friends. You hand out the cards. There's exposition via boombox, right? He has his little tape deck that we've seen before.
It's like a CD player, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it plays the thing that says, oh, welcome to Savannah. And it's, this is why we love The Office. He puts out something crazy and you get each character gets to react in their own organic way, right? You have Angela going, I don't like this. This is scary. This isn't Christian. I don't want to play this voodoo mama character.
Yes.
You get various people objecting to it for different reasons. And then you get Pam trying to sort of gamely, okay, I'll try to do it. This seems like fun. And her doing her sort of sincere little okay, y'all, I'll just be a Southern belle.
Right.
Just kind of trying her best. And then I never forgot Andy's coaching of her where he's no, you're doing more of a Southern Florida panhandle thing. What you want is more of a molasses rolling off your tongue.
Which is great because that is he is such a community theater person.
Yeah.
I have 1,000% corrected your Southern accents when you've tried to do a Louisiana versus a Tennessee versus an Alabama versus Savannah.
And all of your New York accents or tri-state areas sound like Long Island Italian
and Jay
ladies.
often tells me that I am doing the same one. I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, so this is very fun. We get all of them. It's Pam who's trying to have some fun with it, and Andy, of course. Pam is Deborah Utante.
Yes.
Right?
Deb Utante.
Yes. She says, call me Deb for short. And that's where Phyllis is the other one that really gets into it. She's fanning herself.
They all kind of do, right? They all have their little characters and they read their cards and they say what they're gonna say. And they're going through the motions. They're like they always do with Michael's crazy schemes. They're like, all right, we'll go along to get along. And then they start to have some fun.
Yeah. There's the very funny part with Creed. So Creed, his story in real life, he's this guy that toured with the Grateful Dead, and he's just this really eccentric dude who's lived this crazy life. And they just kind of have him on the show, sort of playing himself.
But there's also the story about Creed in the show that he actually is a fugitive and did murder somebody.
Yes, they keep alluding to, similar to Kenneth on 30 Rock, where they imply he's a vampire or something.
Or an angel.
Yeah, they keep just alluding to this crazy past of his. So in this one, he shows up. He says, oh, sorry, I'm late, boss. What did we miss? Michael starts talking to him in the ridiculous Savannah accent,
He's going there's been a
murder.
Yeah, I
and
do
it could
declare
be you.
there's a murder, and you, sir, are a suspect. And yeah, Creed doesn't.
He goes, let me go settle in and I'll come back and find out more. Bolts out of the building.
Creed goes, oh, okay, sure, sounds great. I'll be right back.
He's like, let me get settled in. I'll be right back.
Then we see him through the window, running into his car.
Squealing
and
out of the parking lot, like tires screeching.
Yeah. So you get like several points throughout the episode. It's like their little murder mystery thing starts unfolding, and then something brings them back into the real world when they find a little bit of news about what's happening with their company.
Right.
The mystery ends up getting sort of like ruined halfway through.
Yeah, because so you've got there's the little side story with Andy wanting to ask out Aaron.
Yes. Very heartbreaking.
But they're playing brother and sister in the like characters, and she's slutty. So he is nervous about asking her, so he asks her in his southern accent.
Yes,
and then
in character.
And then she answers him in character. So then he's like, oh no, did I ask out Nellie? Like, Easy Nellie or whatever.
And then throughout the episode, like 2 or 3 other people start going like, hey, Nellie, you want to come around barn with me and have a roll in the hay? And she's like, sure, I do.
Yeah.
And then Andy's looking at the camera going like, oh, this is all just part of her like
whoops,
promiscuity
I think
routine.
I messed up. Yeah, exactly. Somebody there's like a phone call, or is it, it's not another email, right?
No, David Wallace calls, and Michael is like, oh, we're not even going to take the call because we're committed to this murder game. And Jim is like, no, I'll take it.
Right. He's like, I'll take the call. And then he's like, no, we're just about to get to a really good clue. And he hits like fast forward on the CD player, but he skips too far ahead. And that's when the mystery gets solved, right? Like they say, well, by now, whoever Phyllis's character is, Franny, whatever, I don't remember her name, is the murderer. And they're like, oh, and so then they all go back to their desks. Then the call comes in, and Jim takes it and finds out, it's not looking good.
Yeah. Well, there's the part where Oscar comes in also. Oscar is the accountant.
That's right.
He says, because he's received an email that they have to cancel payments to all of their vendors.
Right. That's what happens before the call comes in. That's why they just say that they're going to, and Michael's like, oh, I'm going to get to a really good clue. And then it ruins it. Then the call comes in. Jim
But that's
takes
the great scene where Michael says to Oscar, like, I'm not going to hear any of this.
Right?
If you want to tell us, you have to tell us like in the appropriate
character
way. And so Oscar is just like, Oscar Nunez that plays Oscar Martinez in the show does such a great job of being somebody who is just so uncomfortable doing any kind of voice or accent thing.
He doesn't know how to do it. He goes like
the greenbacks.
You gotta go higher.
Yeah, he does do higher.
He can't do a southern accent, so he just like raises the pitch of his voice, and he's like, the greenbacks are, and he's like speaking in this weird falsetto, and then he tries to do it, but it ends up sounding like Russian or something.
Yeah, and he's like, I can't do this.
The whole, they shoot it so tight because the entire cast is dying laughing.
Yeah, it's very good. But so, he says, look, they told us to cancel all the payments to the vendors. It can't say for sure, but that might be really bad.
Right. And so everyone kind of gets freaked out. Michael fast forwards and spoils it that Phyllis is the murderer. And so they all go back to work. They're like, oh, well, it was good while it lasted, but, now we're all scared and sad again. And then Pam and Jim are having a conversation, and Pam is like, Jim, we both work here.
Yeah, they're really freaking out.
Like, we can't lose our jobs right now. And then the call comes in. Michael keeps trying to restart the game. Right. No one's listening to him. He won't take the call from David. So Jim takes the call, and David is like, yeah, it's not looking good. We're probably going to go bankrupt. And he looks up and he sees Pam out there, and then he walks out of the office, and everyone's like, well, and that's when he realizes that, like, oh, Michael is, dumb like a fox, basically.
Yeah, he goes, I do have some bad news. there has been another murder.
Yeah.
And so he's like, yep, he's conceding to Michael. Okay, we'll keep this dumb game going. Yeah, like you said, David Wallace, the CFO, told Jim we're going to be insolvent by the end of the year. Jim's like, whoa, wait, I got a new big account. And he's like, I can't
even
talk
think
to you.
about it right now.
Yeah. This is around the same time we get that heartbreaking conclusion to the Andy and Erin storyline.
Yes.
They're going to get together eventually, but it is so painful when they continue flirting in character, and I relate so much to this impulse that he's too shy to flirt with her as himself. And so when he goes like, okay, so I'll see you this weekend. And she's like, yeah, we could go to the mall or wherever. And
she names a Scranton restaurant.
Yeah. And he goes that's far from, or she goes like, but that's not in Scranton.
No, she names a Scranton restaurant. And then he's like, well, we're going to be fancy, and says something about it being in Scranton. And she's like, well, what, wasn't it real? And he's like, well, did you want it to be real? And she was like, no. And he's like, yeah, then me either.
Yeah, but he says it. Like, she asks him, and he says, of course I didn't. And she gives him the opportunity to say, were you asking me for real? And Andy decides to wuss out and say no. And then it cuts to her in the talking head being like really sad. Like, and Ellie Kemper plays it really well. She's just like so sincere. And she's like, yeah, I was excited because I thought it was a real date, but it was just part of the game. And she's just like so deflated. There's a little more of the murder mystery, but it ends with the Mexican standoff. You know, that's the part that everyone remembers. Yeah, is what is it? Michael, Andy, and Dwight all facing off with the two double guns, and then they cut to Pam is there too, and they're all just.
That's the surprise reveal. So like the next murder is the drunk redhead, right? They have her.
Oh yes.
She's the one that gets murdered, and so now they're trying to solve it, but like it's really ancillary at this point because like they're just making it up. Michael's trying to make it up as he goes along. But yeah, so then that last little bit where it's like you've got the three of them and you're just seeing the three of them and they're holding the guns at just the three of them, and then Jim comes around the corner and the camera is in the center and it turns around to the door as Jim comes in, and then it like zooms back a little bit and you see Pam standing next to the door with her fancy, dainty gloves on, also in the Mexican standoff, and she's like, nobody move, and she's trying to like back out of the door, and she goes, go start the car, I'll be right there, and she's like backing out of the room.
Yes, it's very silly.
And then the guys all shoot each other, and then they all fall on the ground and pretend like blood is spurting, and they're like, bang, 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 shoop, shoop, shoop.
This is exactly how we played in the neighborhood when we were like 7 or 8. They're all just just literally like playing with their imaginations.
They looked like they were having fun.
Yeah. They're all standing there, and then just all at once, the three of them are just like, ah! And then just like you see Dwight making the motions of blood shooting out of his chest. Yes, it's all very silly. And you get that final talking head with Michael and Jim talking to the camera, and Michael's going like, my little heart can hardly take any more. He's still in character as this ridiculous
Cody, whatever.
Yeah, Caleb Crawdad or something. And so look, this one, I feel like this is often the case when we get to the 21st century shows where it's the more realistic take. It's not trying to have you believe that our characters really got involved with the murder, even temporarily.
Right.
It's more like, no, this is what it actually is in real life to play one of these murder mystery games and have some people get into it and some people refuse to get into it and all the other things.
Yes.
And like I said, this is one of my favorite ones. I think Steve Carell is hysterical, and all of just the way that he commits to this and is like, I will keep this game going no matter what. And just,
you can't talk to me, I do declare.
Yeah, all this. Very, very funny.
Yeah.
All right. What do we think? Lots of good stuff. Murder mystery weekends. Any thoughts?
I'm going to say I thought the middle two were my favorite. They were the classic of this, trope that's not a trope, this situation, right? I thought those were really fun. They both were really nostalgic for me. I enjoyed just all, like, the constant kind of the way that this situation allows those casts to kind of pick at each other and play with each other and do it in a different way, but also the same ways that we love. I thought those two were my favorite. And The Office was great, don't get me wrong. And it was very funny and I enjoyed it. And it was a better episode of television than the other three or four, because there were 2 Jeffersons. But just for like my pure satisfaction, Saved by the Bell.
Yeah, this one, I love it when they line up in this way where it's just so like you could take a 7th grade class and explain like, okay, like why would you put an audience through this process, to see like, oh yeah, it starts off as a game and they're testing their wits and then they're thrown into danger, but then the danger turns out to be fake. And it's just so funny how, these first 3 shows march us through those same exact beats. And it's almost like they keep building on each other because the Golden Girls like adds the element of the detective, and then the Saved by the Bell keeps the detective and adds the element of the French maid or whatever. Yeah. Like I said before, I think the Saved by the Bell one, I agree, of those 3 with the sort of murder mystery weekend and the fake real murder and everything, Saved by the Bell pulls it off the best because it is so economical. Yeah. It has them come right away because it doesn't bother getting to know any of the other characters except for exactly what you need to know.
Yeah, it's like the lady's like, oh, you stole my necklace. Yeah, it was my grandmother.
It's not spending time on like Blanche's enemy or like these 4 other mystery writers or anything like that. So you really get this very lean, straightforward thing, and just the like secret passages and shit.
Yes,
like,
the secret passageways are the best.
Yes, the secret passages, the piano player, like all that stuff. I love all that. And yeah, I think I would have to say that I agree with what you said, that in terms of like the nostalgia and the general watchability, the Saved by the Bell is kind of on the top. But then you also have just that mark of quality and just like that super solid TV that is The Office. And especially, again, just the way it's managing to be like sort of a key episode, or at least keep that ball in the air about what's happening overall with this Dunder Mifflin story, and also give you this very self-contained little, oh yeah, that's the one where they play the murder game.
Yeah.
I think that works really
smart. Well. Yeah. And they do, I mean, look, The Office is a fabulous show. So it's it's gonna do a good job 9 out of 10 times.
All right. So much for the murder mysteries. What are we talking about next time? That is the biggest mystery of all, and we will all find out the answer next week. Until then, we will consider this segment of the sitcom study concluded. Thank you for listening to the Sitcom Study. Tell us what you think or share your own TV tropes and topic ideas by sending a self-addressed stamped email to sitcomstudypodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you like the show, consider leaving a rating or review on your podcast app. It helps us boost those precious Nielsen ratings. The Sitcom Study is recorded in front of a live studio dog.